our technology to be able to create what everyone calls the new normal. We've been able to understand that working from home is possible, something that was inconceivable pre-COVID. So you're looking at us learning new ways on how we can get the best out of our journalists, but also safety. I know that in journalism school, safety is something that you're taught to the latter, but something that journalists sometimes take for granted. So you realize that your kit today as a journalist, when you're going out in the field, must have a mask. You must, when you're conducting the interview, you must do it in a certain way. So, but also SOPs, standard operating procedures or protocols, have been introduced. Then you cannot just walk into a media house without sanitizing. You cannot walk in.
Media Challenge being a home of digital journalism, something that we've trained university students and practicing journalists, it would be a shame if we didn't have this a success. Seeing the different panelists from different countries, getting together to talk to the different university students who are also in their homes in different places of this country is something that we didn't see ourselves achieving. I've also come to learn that digital is the way to go. Online conferences is the way to go, because I realized that many of panelists were at ease when they're in different locations to participate in this year's Expo. This has created a global village where we've been connecting to panelists from different countries, connecting from Nigeria, and from Nigeria to South Africa, and then to USA, Norway, Canada, from different locations, has created a global village. But also seeing the participants, especially university students, participating from their comfort zones. But also the end result is embedding all those people from different countries, from different locations, participants and panelists, into one product. And that was the live stream for the 2 days that's been on Facebook and Media Challenges. YouTube is something amazing. So this is an experience that you can't miss, be it in print journalism, be it in broadcasting journalism, online journalism. This is an experience that you shouldn't miss, because it is an experience that you'll never find anywhere. And having a feel of television in a conference is also something uncommon in Uganda. So please join us for the remaining days as we connect to different countries and connecting to different panelists, but also connecting with different journalists across the world.
Since 2012, we have moved around many universities and media institutions with one goal: to give a platform for the next generation of journalists. And guess what? This platform has uncovered many talents that have taken over the entire media industry by storm. For the past 8 years, over 4,000 students have gone through this amazing concept and are now working with major media houses, both local and international. Get ready for Season 9 of the Inter-Institutional Media Challenge on the 24th of November 2020 as we audition another set of media students with different journalism skills. The audition will be streamed live on all our Media Challenge Initiative social platforms, and from 30th November to 5th December, we will host the Media Challenge Expo under the theme, Keeping Journalism Alive in Times of Uncertainty. Join us on this journey to build and inspire the next generation of journalists. This will be the first virtual edition of the Media Challenge Expo, where over 6 days you can tune into engaging panel discussions to find solutions to critical issues in our media industry. Practical journalism.
As COVID-19 continues to claim lives of millions of people, the economic crisis on hype, the media industry has not been spared, a time when the fourth state is needed the most to tell the people what is happening in the country. Tonight, we are discussing some of these challenges and how the media industry is able to come up and stand still to make sure that you, our viewers, get the knowledge that you are supposed to get. Good morning and thank you so much on board. You are welcome. My name is Rahim Nwali, and tonight I am joined by El Shaddai Joseph. Good morning.
Good morning, Nwali. You look smart and legit.
Thank you, bro. You look smart too.
Just to remind you that this is one of the virtual sessions that we are having courtesy of COVID-19, and this is what COVID-19 brought to us. And at this time, we would be somewhere in Nakasero's Zanadu collections having people showcasing, but we are unable to have them because of the different things that are coming on board. But we are coming live to you from Kansanga, where we are right here at the Media Challenge Initiative offices. For those of you are joining us for the very first time, welcome aboard and thank you so much for joining us. It's going to be a very one kind of day that we are going to be having interactions and of course enjoying one another. We shall be bringing you up to speed on each and every single thing that will be going on. But today, Nwali, it feels like another new day of its own. And of course, I've been remembering about the days where we had the Expo. We had the privilege of me and you being into the Expo, showcasing, anchoring news. How was the experience for you before I tell you mine?
Definitely, it was such an intense experience. You know, the pressure, you know, the fact that you're looking at so many people around you, different people, brains, people that have made it somehow where you want to be. I think it called for a lot of hard work for you to be able to become a fellow, something that we all dreamt about. That was entirely my experience.
Did I come before you or you came before me?
I don't want to go into that because I remember it is something I don't want to remember, definitely, because after you on set, I was next, and you had pulled up this amazing performance. Inside me, I'm like, goodness, am I going to do this? How will I even handle? The bar was really so high.
Maybe to give you an experience of what happens in the Media Challenge Expo lately, before we went virtual. We have a very nice audience of people shouting at the top of their voices, and of course different millions of students from different universities, and of course a panel of judges. I think that's what brings a lot of intense and pressure, because these are people that are experienced in the game. I felt like I wanted to break my legs and fall off the stage.
Well, it is something you definitely have to remember each time you are somewhere or make it in life. Or the journalism industry is such an industry that needs talent and confidence for you to be able to do this. And this is what we actually being trained about at the fellowship.
Of course, for those of you who are getting us from our Facebook page, that is Media Challenge Initiative, welcome aboard. You can recommend a friend or two to also join you and be a part of this amazing experience. And of course, you can catch us on our YouTube channel, that is Media Challenge Initiative. And maybe you should not be left out. We are going to be joined by Mrs. Anika, the head of programs at the Media Challenge Initiative, to tell us what has been the experience and maybe answer a few questions here. Because, Nwali, this is something that we really want to talk about and understand. How is this being able to
but I think it's one of a kind. The fact that it is virtual. We would initially be having different students here showcasing their skills, the panelists live one-on-one, and then having bites for our stories, but it is somehow different. All right, thank you so much for joining us, Anika, head of department, Media Challenge Initiative. We do understand that it is so hard for the Media Challenge or the media industry to pull up events like this one. How have you been able to pull up such an event? Why not give up?
Thank you for your question, and thank you for having me on the show. I think as you've been experiencing, the physical expo, you see that it's an amazing experience, but it's dependent on having 300, 500 people in the same space to talk about the challenges facing the media industry, to bring together journalism students and media recruiters, and to give people that live reporting experience. So of course when COVID-19 hit, we were like, what are we going to do? Because this is our flagship event. It's an amazing experience, but it can't happen in the same way that we've...
Maybe Mrs. Adika, to ask you, how has been the mobilization like, the process? Because we understand that this starts with different stages, the media, the mobile journalism, a studio, the auditions, and then the expo as well. How have you been able to pull off all these students, bring them together to see that your work is eased?
Yes, thank you for your question. So as I was saying, we had to pivot. We could not have the physical in-person events which, you know, define the media challenge experience. So we thought, how can we still bring people together and have that interactive and personal and learning experience, but online? So we started with about 100 students. We divided them into 5 groups of 20 students each, and they went through a 1-week online training, which included going through online courses, but also you know, small group online sessions with our trainers where they really got, you know, that personal learning experience. And during the week, they would go out in their communities, wherever they are. We had students who are all up country who are not able to be in Kampala since their schools were closed due to COVID. They were going out in the communities, covering stories on their phones, producing them, coming back to Antonio on the live sessions, and he would give them feedback. So we were still able to create that personal and, you know, learning experience for the students, but in an online setting. So from there, we went to the auditions. They happened in person, but following all of the SOPs. So we had smaller groups of students last week at Mackinnon Suits for 2 days. And the students were able to meet with the judges in small groups and actually critically review the stories they had produced during this time.
And maybe some of the questions that I would ask, over the years we've had different themes. We had women in media, we had climate change last year, and this year we have keeping journalism alive in times of uncertainties. If I'm to pose a question, why that particular theme?
Yeah, thank you for your question. And actually, as you know, COVID-19 hit the whole world and we had to think of new ways to do things. So initially we were actually thinking of a different theme, but when COVID hit, we were like, we have to focus on COVID and how it's impacted the media industry, because we know that, you know, it's just exacerbated all of the problems which have already been facing the media, like revenue shortfalls. We've seen so many media houses closing, laying off staff. The old ways that we used to make money are not working anymore. But COVID presents new opportunities, so that's what we want to bring.
We do understand that you have a very busy schedule, but shortly before we let you go, my last question would be, are you looking at this kind of competition being the new normal of the Media Challenge initiative? Or if when times get back to normal, we are going back to the other setting?
I think we're going to take certain elements that worked really well and that we said, oh, this is actually a great innovation, and bring them into the next year while bringing back, you know, the benefits that we get from the in-person interaction. So like at this Expo, we've been able to bring in speakers from all around Africa, from all around the world to share experiences online, which we never would have been able to do before. And even having those online sessions with our trainers, students can join in from anywhere that they are. If they're up country, if they're in their villages, they can join in and get that still one-on-one experience without us actually spending a lot of resources to move to where they are. So I think we'll be incorporating some of those elements, but also bringing back some of the old ways.
All right, Mrs. Anika, one person would love to understand, how is the assessment process like? Because literally we had a panel of judges telling people, you have done this, and someone would tell that so-and-so has done better than me, so I do not expect to win that award. How is the assessment process going to be like, and how will people know that, yes, I am confident of what has been laid out?
Yeah. So after the trainings, the students went out and they did their stories. So they did essays, video features, radio features, and photography, all looking at, you know, community-based solutions to this COVID-19 situation that we're facing in the society. And after that, they came to Mackinnon Suits last week. We had the small group peer feedback sessions with the judges there. So the judges were able for the first time to actually go through the drafts and tell them, change this, this one you did well. So that was the first stage of kind of the review process. After that, the students submit a revised version, which we hope will be improved.
Maybe to come in a little bit, you kept on saying small groups. What was the criteria of finding the small groups from the bigger ones?
Mm-hmm. Well, we had to reach a smaller group of students this year in general, just due to the fact that with COVID-19, you can't have as many people together. And also a lot of the students were not available to participate. Are
you saying there was an assessment before to get the small groups? Or yes, you literally picked out to find the people that you needed in the small groups?
Mm-hmm. So out of the 100 students who were part of the Media Challenge this year, they actually applied to be a part. Because we knew that we would only be able to reach smaller groups this year, so they had to go through an application process. But then out of that, all the students who were interested were able to come last week to review their stories. And ones who were not around in person could send it to us, so we still review virtually. Yes.
One more last question, Mrs. Anika, before maybe we call this a wrap. The effectiveness of this virtual experience, how sure are you that people who are watching, most especially the participants, are going to gain from it?
That's a very good question, and it's something that has concerned us when we think of online engagements. Basically, we've tried to reach them as many ways as possible on Zoom, on Facebook, on YouTube, to wherever they are. We try to get them to join in. We use the WhatsApp groups for communication with the small groups to see, what did you get out of this session? How can we do it better? And we also have 7 skills building sessions in this week, just like the ones we used to do at the Expo, but they're online. And these have been really a very engaging and interactive experience, even for the students online. Yesterday we had one on fact-checking, the day before COVID reporting. Today we have ones on personal branding and photojournalism. So
Sure.
This is still a very interactive way for the students to really get those skills and knowledge areas.
Thank you so much for honoring our invitation.
Thank you
Ms.
so much.
Anika, Head of Programs at the Media Challenge Initiative. All right, we did hear something about the programs. This is the 3rd day of the Media Challenge Expo, the virtual Expo. Joseph, virtual Expo.
It is virtual, but maybe to tell someone who is watching us that there has been a one-on-one pitching session for the Media Challenge Fellows with Media House recruiters. Wow, I think that is one experience that it comes as a benefit of being a Media Challenge Fellow. Because you do not understand, you have no idea about who is going to be your next employer, Rahim. If you are pitching to big media companies, you do not understand if they are going to recruit you. So it all comes back to you. How can you package yourself and maybe pitch? Sorry.
Probably for someone who's just joining us, they probably want to know who is a Media Challenge Fellow.
Exactly.
What do you do to even get there
what
anyway?
do you do to be there?
Yes. So we could probably break it for you. The Media Challenge Fellowship program is one that comes after the award ceremony. And then there is the applications form that you must fill to qualify as a fellow.
And actually, Rahim, take us through from where we are now, because this is an expo now. So someone will know. We will have to understand from the expo. Now what next? What next?
Quite brilliant. All right, this is the 3rd day, like I said, of the Media Challenge Expo. We did have 2 days ago, and then we still have more days to come. Now, this is the time you need to just concentrate, sit down, learn. One-on-one pitching is something that you really, really want to engage in. You never know, like Joseph said, who your employer is. But maybe before we even get here, the times where we were from the first year,
Exactly.
second year of engaging, winning, then probably to fellowship. The themes we had last year, I remember we had women in media, we had climate change.
We have a theme about
refugees, and then here we are doing keeping journalism, how journalism has actually been kept alive in times of uncertainty. What rings into your mind? What rings a bell in your mind when we talk about such events?
Probably, if I'm to answer that one question, Rahim, I will tell you that this calls for action. Journalists have been able to report stories concerning the other side of the people, but this time we are talking about journalism, the journalists themselves. So I think it is something that is so personal, and people should look out for these sessions as well. So we've had a lot of things going on ever since the expo started. We've had day 1, we've had day 2, and wow, it has been amazing. The incredible Dana Yebare was here on Monday, and of course Asha was here as well. Dana Yebare also did it again yesterday, and here we are today to bring you up to speed whatever is going to be happening day 1. But if I'm to take you back for someone who is joining us today, maybe they have not been here for day 1 and day 2. We had day 1 a theme about solution journalism, and I think it is something that we are going to be talking about strictly after what we, if just you give us a glimpse of what you think about solution journalism maybe.
Definitely, as a Media Challenge Fellow, I am quite intense with what solution journalism has to do in media, because this is what we actually look at. We do believe that media has gone ways from what leads and stuff like that, just bringing on stories for you to watch. We believe that solutions to these stories will help you understand or what to do with it. That is why the Media Challenge is here. Those are the factors, the core factors at which the Media Challenge was built.
Exactly, because I understand when we talk about solutions over the years, we have been listening to people reporting stories that are even not worthy reporting. But again, that's a conversation that we are going to be talking about after our break, and we are going to be having a video that shows how media has been hit by Joe Chigozi from Next Media. He's going to be talking to us about what has been happening and how have they been able to stay strong in these times of uncertainties. Just keep it locked. We shall be right back after this break.
So from a media perspective, we have been affected, no doubt about it. Some of the effects have been positive, majority have been negative. If you look at, for example, the anxiety that journalists have gone through, especially covering stories. I'm talking about the early stages of COVID. There was a lot of anxiety, a lot of unknowns. So certainly their mental health wasn't, spared. And I believe that so many are still going through the rigors of the fear of covering a story because you don't know what's going to happen. So there have been effects, of course, on how you report. I mean, imagine how interviews have been done with the fear of not contracting COVID. So you had to learn how to conduct an interview, keeping social distance, and making sure that you don't only protect yourself, but also protect others. So the method of work has also been affected. You had to be extra careful. You had to sanitize. You have to put on a mask all the time. Certainly it slows you down. The effectiveness of a journalist has been slowed down. I think in terms of response, one was to align the content, what kind of content should be produced. So everything we did had something to do with COVID because it touches every sector of the world economy. It brings the world to a standstill. So it was imperative that we realign our content to try and be more relevant to the Ugandan. But also in terms of method of work, of course the shift kind of system has been able to show us that actually people can do more. Conferences, which have been a success, a huge success. You probably think that has been some of the positives for COVID-19, and I believe we've done so many. It has been an eye-opener. We've even transcended the way business is conducted for companies. We've done AGMs on Zoom. We've done, meetings for big companies on Zoom, conferences that ideally would never have taken place. We've used the advantage to, use our technology to be able to create what everyone calls the new normal. We've been able to understand that working from home is possible, something that was inconceivable pre-COVID. So you're looking at us learning new ways on how we can get the best out of our journalists, but also safety. I know that in journalism school, safety is something that you're taught to the latter, but something that journalists sometimes take for granted. So you realize that your kit today as a journalist when you're going out in the field must have a mask. You must, when you're conducting the interview, you must do it in a certain way. So, but also SOPs, standard operating procedures or protocols have been introduced. Then you cannot just walk into a media house without sanitizing. You cannot walk into a media house without a mask. And you have to observe the social distancing. The media was a bit slow to actually take this very seriously until when things started to heat up. So I think in future, we shouldn't only focus on what you people call day two journalism. I think it's important to think beyond our horizon as the media. for the young journalists, it's another opportunity, one, to be inspired that the profession that you chose is actually very, very impactful. But also seeing the opportunity. We've seen our own journalists here become stellar performers. And the interesting thing is that COVID journalism has also helped us to explore the other platforms like the social media reporting, the iReports. I mean, creating a whole new way of reporting about journalism. We've seen WhatsApp videos, you know, people doing live reporting about COVID. So for a young journalist, I think it's the best time to be a journalist.
Since 2012, we have moved around many universities and media institutions with one goal: to give a platform for the next generation of journalists. And guess what? This platform has uncovered many talents that have taken over the entire media industry by storm. For the past 8 years, over 4,000 students have gone through this amazing concept and are now working with major media houses, both local and international. Get ready for Season 9 of the Inter-Institutional Media Challenge on the 24th of November 2020 as we audition another set of media students with different journalism skills. The audition will be streamed live on all our Media Challenge Initiative social platforms, and from 30th November to 5th December, we will host the Media Challenge Expo under the theme, Keeping Journalism Alive in Times of Uncertainty. Join us on this journey to build and inspire the next generation of journalists. This will be the first virtual edition of the Media Challenge Expo, where over 6 days you can tune into engaging panel discussions to find solutions to critical issues in our media industry, practical journalism skills building sessions, and live pitching sessions with media recruiters.
Thank you so much for choosing to stay with us. We are here live in Kasanga at the Media Challenge offices to give to you, our viewers, what you deserve and brighten up your day. Joseph El Shaddai, we did hear the video. Goodness, the video. Jochigozi.
Jochigozi has hit on most of the things that the media industry has gone through, and maybe I'll take that as a case study to represent the majority of other media houses. He has hit on different things. That the pandemic came with both positive and negative implications. Some of the negative implications he talked about was anxiety and maybe the fear when the pandemic hit. There was fear for the media industry to sustain itself. Remember, we talked about this, that the media industry does not sleep. When other people have closed down, the media still exists. You understand? So I think he has talked about the fear that came with that. And I am one of the victims, because you would not risk your life to go into the field, to go to Chikuba, where they tell you that the numbers are accumulating down there just because you are reporting a story. You know, Rahim, we've always been told that there is no story worth your life. You understand that? And maybe the other thing he has talked about it was mental health. Mental health is something that is so sensitive, Rahim.
To come in right there on mental health, I think this is where the society needs to appreciate the work that is being done by journalists.
Exactly.
The mental health, you have a journalist covering these stories, COVID-19 stories of patients dying every single day, but they still have to go out there and give you the information you want. With challenges that they're facing, we know for a fact that so many of these employees, salaries were cut, some of them were forced to work from home, among other things, with an industry that's been battling with financial issues. You have mental health, you have to go back home, the fear of infecting your family, coming back to work, to feed the society, with a lot of pressure, with a lot of, remember, we don't have something like mental health desks in newsrooms where someone is going to come and then maybe tell you, okay, this has happened, I think this, I believe this, you know, to just bisect some of their fears.
Jochigos has also hit on some of the methods that have worked for them. Maybe they discovered within the pandemic, and he talked about the shifts, introduction of shifts, and maybe remote working. We've seen this. We've seen Joy Koinange anchoring news in his bedroom. We've seen people working different shifts. I think those are some of the things that have been adapted to see that the media and journalism at large is being kept alive in these times of uncertainty. uncertainties. So to bring you up to speed, Rahim, today we have an interesting topic. We have a theme, keeping journalism alive in times of uncertainties. And below that, we do have a very interesting topic that we are going to be rotating our discussion to, and that is media viability and maybe new revenue business models to keep journalism alive. If we are to talk about the term viability, I think that is the ability to grow, ability to sustain, and maybe to execute something excellent. So if we are to relate that to media viability, this is the ability of media industry, media houses to keep themselves alive, to keep themselves sustainable in these times and these times of era. If you are to tell me and maybe take me through what are the new models, business models that have been developed to keep journalism alive.
I think before we even go that, I think it's such an interesting topic because it affects you and I and maybe millions out there globally that are fighting so hard to feed society with information. Now, the business models that are being brought up or that has come up within the pandemic, like just because said, the e-conferences. Eshada, you'll agree with me that this is something that has just become common in times of the pandemic. E-conferences generating a lot of money for the media industry. You talk about the elections. However much I'm just skeptical about how they will sustain that because elections will come and go.
Sure.
January, the funding from this period will as well have gone. Then you're looking at subscribers. Some people online, you have to pay to watch their content.
Sure.
Many journalists have resorted to become freelancers. All right? So you have community organizations that are supporting some of the programs to just make sure that journalists are being sustained in their work line.
And of course, today we are going to be joined by a panel of people that are going to be talking and dissecting issues in that line. So maybe to just give you a biography of some of the panelists that we are going to be having, we shall be having Gerald Businge. Gerald is an award-winning multimedia journalist. He is also a researcher, a communications trainer and innovator in Uganda. He is a lecturer of multimedia journalism and digital communications at Makerere University's Department of Journalism and Communication. And of course, we also have Wansonga Samuel, who is a Ugandan journalist with 6 years of broadcast experience. Stone is also the co-founder of Storytelled, a mobile-first media startup that uses short text and sound-aided videos to tell stories.
All right, maybe to quickly take you through their names, we do have Eva Georgia from the International Media Consultant. We have Njochi Cheng, Aga Khan University Innovation Center, the director. We have Bill Silcock. We have Gerard Businge, like you said, and Songa Stone. All right, we quickly want to invite in the CEO, Media Challenge Initiative, Mpindi Abbas, because we have the panel going through that will be next, and he will be moderating that. But maybe before we actually do that, you were telling me about the viability and the new business models that are actually happening in the media industry. We know for a fact that even the NMG, the National Media Group, cut almost 20% of their employees' salaries. We did see the scenario at Sanyu FM.
Exactly.
What do you have to say about this?
I think this was a situation whereby everyone had to be considerate about the situation that was going through. However much it was it was hitting a nose, you understand, on the other side of employees. They saw it as these media houses were taking advantage of the situation, but we would love, they were supposed to be considerate. However much it was a situation whereby people had to put out a lot of money to see that they buy different things to keep them rolling. Talk about the sanitizers that were hiked in that period. Talk about the masks. So I think before even we go there, Rahim, as an employee, you would also consider what your bosses are going through to see. So cutting your salary by 20% wouldn't be an issue, but just seeing that, okay, you retain, because after all, this has to go back to the normal.
It is indeed something we're here to find out from our panelists. All right, we are going for a short break. We are watching the video of the past Expo, and shortly before that, after that, we will have Mpindi Abbas, Media Challenge Initiative CEO, to moderate our panel. You don't want to miss this.
Guys, what's up? It's your girl Cookie, aka the last one, aka the dreaded voyage. And guys, today is Sunday and it is the third day of the expo at the Inter-University Media Challenge. It's been 3 days of hard work, 3 days of digital skills, 3 days of panel discussions, 3 days of so much, guys. This is where people's career starts. I am moving in a room where all the magic happens. We have the editors, like I said, we have the anchors, and we have the reporters trying to finalize with their work. We're going to move, and you're going to see for yourselves. But the best I can tell you is the feeling is overboard. I'm panting so much as if I'm the anchor, but I'm not even a judge. Anyhow, let's get in and let's see how it's going to be going down.
I'm happy to be here. We're working on our stories and finally we are getting up to, we want to present finally. Yeah, yes please. Yeah.
So what is your role today?
I'm editing stories and we are coming up with scripts after editing.
I'm very ready for anything that comes.
How do winners look? Say something to the camera. Say something a winner would say.
Winners look like me, so if you want to win, just look like me.
I'm so sorry guys, I do not qualify because I don't look like him.
I feel energy, though kind of shaking, but I have energy.
I'm feeling excited. I can't wait to represent my campus. Just tell me how you feel. How do you feel? Because you're super confident. I want to hear that.
Well, I feel nervous, yes, but then I always turn my nerves into confidence, and that gives me a way to relate with people because I want to do stories that are for the voiceless.
There's a salon in the room, guys. The mobile newsroom has a salon. Please move with me. Come with me, come with me. So. I'm guessing you're an anchor. There's makeup too. Hi, how do you feel?
I feel very excited and happy.
How do excited people look?
Well, they look exactly like I do.
What's your name?
My name is Kanan Arinda.
From where?
From Uganda Christian University, UCU.
I hope you're as excited as I am because we're going to get everything covered for you and you're going to have such a fantastic moment. Till then, guys, what's up? It's your girl Cookie, aka the last one, aka the dreaded voyage. And guys, today is Sunday and it is the third day of the expo at the Inter-University Media Challenge. It's been 3 days of hard work, 3 days of digital skills, 3 days of panel discussions, 3 days of so much, guys. This is where people's career starts. I am moving and I'm getting into the mobile newsroom where all the magic happens. We have the editors, like I said, we have the anchors, and we have the reporters trying to finalize with their work. We're going to move, and you're going to see for yourselves. But the best I can tell you is the feeling is overboard. I'm panting so much as if I'm the anchor, but I'm not even a judge. Anyhow, let's get in and let's see how it's going to be going down.
I'm happy to be here. We're working on our stories and finally we are getting up to, we want to present finally. Yeah, yes please. Yeah.
So what is your role today?
I'm editing stories and we are coming up with scripts after editing.
I'm very ready for anything that comes.
How do winners look? Say something to the camera. Say something a winner would say.
Winners look like me, so if you want to win, just look like me.
I'm so sorry guys, I do not qualify because I don't look like him.
I feel energy, though kind of shaking, but I have energy.
I'm feeling excited. I can't wait to represent my campus. Just tell me how you feel. How do you feel? Because you're super confident. I want to hear that.
Well, I feel nervous, yes, but then I always turn my nerves into confidence, and that gives me a way to relate with people because I want to do stories that are for the voiceless.
There's a salon in the room, guys. The mobile newsroom has a salon. Please move with me. Come with me, come with me. So. I'm guessing you're an anchor. There's makeup too. Hi, how do you feel?
I feel very excited and happy.
How do excited people look?
Well, they look exactly like I do.
What's your name?
My name is Kanan Arinda.
From where?
From Uganda Christian University, UCU.
I hope you're as excited as I am because we're going to get everything covered for you and you're going to have such a fantastic moment. Till then,
For the virtual expo. Now, what you just watched is the preview, or what really happens on the normal day is the tension, telling you this happens, but it is totally different when it gets to this year. All right, I'm privileged to be joined by the Media Challenge Initiative CEO, Mr. Mpindi Abbas. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us. Is it a morning yet? Okay, cool.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Fine.
I'm
great.
all wired now.
Okay. Shortly before we go further, what are the new revenues that are being done by the Media Challenge Initiative?
I think that's the discussion that we're going to have. So if I start it, it will be like cheating the panelists.
I don't want to look like I looked into your questions.
So definitely that's going to happen. We have a panel of experts from all over, from the US, from Germany, from Kenya, from South Africa, and here in Uganda. So that question will be answered, because me, I'm just here. I will actually make sure that your question is answered. How about that?
All right, thank you. Allow me to hand over to Mr. Abbas Mpindi.
Thank you. Okay. Are we live? Okay.
Since 2012, we have moved around many universities and media institutions with one goal: to give a platform for the...
Some specific flavor that we didn't have since day one. So this is amazing to see you guys and how you've grown from the Expo last year to being very amazing hosts. Good morning to everyone joining us on Zoom. Thank you so much for taking your time to come and join this panel. And then good morning to everyone who is joining us on Facebook. What I want to start with is a little bit of a background to this session. So some of you may be wondering who I am, but before I even tell you about the background, my name is Abbas Mpindi. I'm the CEO of Media Challenge Initiative, which is a youth-driven, not-for-profit building the next generation of journalists in Uganda and Africa. And I'm very delighted to be here because this is a conversation that's very close to home, and as the media industry is struggling with sustainability and viability, this is the best time to have that conversation. So if there is anything that I'm committed to do this day, is to have this conversation to the fullest. But also this is a job that I'm willing to die for, because I know some of the conversations and answers that will come out of this conversation will really help one or two people out there who is struggling with their startup or with their media house. So before we get started, a few house rules. One, if you're on Zoom, please mute yourself so that we can hear you, so that we can hear our panelists, okay? But also, you will have a moment to ask questions. So you will join us by asking your questions using the chat room, or you can also use the Q&A section. And then we're streaming on Facebook and on YouTube Live. You can tweet using the hashtag MCI Expo UG. And that's, hashtag Media Expo UG. Sorry. Now that we know the house rules, let's get the panel started. So welcome officially to the 2020 Media Challenge Expo. This theme is keeping journalism alive in times of uncertainty. It's a hard time for us to be in this field right now, but in case you missed the last couple of days, we had solutions journalism, and yesterday we had flattening the infodemic curve, talking about fact-checking and media literacy to keep journalism alive. Today, we are looking at something different: business models, revenue models. And we have a panel of experts that I know personally and professionally, that I have to go through their bios. But I thought maybe I can share specific stories about these individuals that I know, rather than go through like the heavy bias, because that will take a lot of time. So when I introduce you, your name and my personal story about you, our dear panelists, just tell us your name, just say hi to us, and then look around yourself and see an object that you can share with us that resonates with this session. I know that I've probably caught you unaware. I can see Eva and Nadine trying to look around. But just look at something around your table and show it to us and tell us what, how that object resonates to the conversation we are having today. So I don't know if we have Dr. Bill Silcock, but Dr. Bill Silcock is a scholar and a leading innovator, global innovator in journalism. He is joining us from the University of Arizona. And the personal story I have with that gentleman, I met him in France, and his energy around journalism education and innovation was very radiating to me. And ever since then, I kept in touch. And Dr. Bill, I don't know if you are on, but if you are, please, you can unmute yourself and say hi to us, and then share with us the object that you have with you over there. I think that Dr. Bill hasn't yet joined us, so I will invite another doctor in the house. So we have from Kenya, Dr. Njoki Chege, who runs the Innovation Center at the Aga Khan University. Dr. Njoki, if you can unmute yourself and just share with us your object that you have, anything that you have around you.
So Abbas has sort of caught me off guard about this object thing. So I'll just grab what is this right next to me, and that is my charger. So I think it has some meaning to me, the fact that I'm to charge, to connect. I meet with us probably maybe once or twice a week. And one thing I say is that we need to stop talking to ourselves. It's always good that you stop
Songa Stone. Songa Stone is, I would say, one of the most innovative storytellers of our time here in Uganda. And his art for storytelling through his startup Storytell is a story that I always tell everyone that I meet. So, Mr. Songa Stone, you know how proud I am of you. So if you can unmute yourself and say hi to us.
Hi everyone, my name is Songa Stone. I am a Ugandan journalist and I'm excited to be here. When it comes to the future of journalism, really, when Abbas said we should look at the table and find an object that reflects where we are at the time, I couldn't think any farther than the mask that I have on the table, because the time is called for a lot of adoption of new ways, but then also adaptation to what the times dictate. So as much as I'm excited to be here, at least I have something that represents the times and sort of challenge ahead, which I believe the media fraternity around the world is more than ready to take. Thank you.
Unmute. Thanks, Songa. One of the things that Songa, maybe later you will try to increase. I don't know if it's your sound was pretty low on my side, so I couldn't hear you. Okay, but I could hear you. I'm sure other people could also hear you. So we are missing two other panelists who will be joining us. So that's Dr. Bill and then Gerard Businge, who is the founder of Ultimate Media Consult, big on research and big on innovation as well. So the way we're supposed to run today was to have each and every panelist share their experience and their story. But we wanted to start with Dr. Bill today for him to just shape the conversation and tell us from his huge experience working in broadcast, radio, print, and innovation, and then the academic world, how have the trends changed over the years, and what impact do those trends have on media viability, media businesses, and the quality of content and independent journalism. But he's not yet online. We'll wait for him. But for now, I want to introduce Nadine to share with us the media viability model that is developed by DW Academy. I am a big fan of it already, that it looks at the various dimensions in terms of media viability being more than just money, really. And in most cases, when we talk about media business, we're always going around with, money, but it's really more than that. So if you can share, I know you have some slides that you can share with us. I think a lot of us and our audiences will benefit from that presentation. So over to you, Nadine.
Thank you, Abbas. Can you see my presentation? Yeah, I see you. It's a bit slow. Anyway, we'll go along. Here we go. So yes, thank you, Abbas. And yes, I mean, our slogan is media viability. It's more than money, because what we say, it's of course it all comes down to money. Most of things in life do, but how to get to that money is the important bit. And what is important is to think about things strategically and base your strategy on facts and on a sound analysis. So what do we mean? We mean media viability to us means that media is able to be profitable, but also produce high quality journalism at the same time. Because as Deutsche Welle Academy is a media development organization, of course, you can make money with sensationalist content, with hate speech, with all of that. But obviously that's not the business that we are in, and that's not what we see as productive and constructive as well for society. So for us, it's important that there's a way to find ways to produce high quality content and have a profitable business. And what we've realized when we looked at media that are viable or have been viable as well, we've realized that it's not only about the media organization itself, but it's about a lot of different things that happen around you. So it's about your networks, it's about your overall environment, your political environment, your economic environment. And all of these factors play a very important role for your viability. It's also what sources do you have, income sources or support sources? Are there political restrictions on freedom of speech? How close are you to your audience, etc. So all of these areas play a very important role. What we looked at, we did quite a lot of research on investigative journalism, and we broke up these areas for media. So when you look at it from a media's point of view, and these are the things that we identified as important. And they're pretty much everything that any media business deals with. Anything from security, which obviously has an important influence on your viability, because if you're not secure, if you're being attacked digitally or physically, that will have an impact on your budget, but also on your ability to produce content. Technology, of course, and innovation, capacity building. It's very important to invest in capacity building, to create content that's relevant to your audiences, and your audience in general is something that is very important. And we see that it has become even more important now during COVID. I mean, now is the time to find out what your audiences want and give them what they want, because there is a higher demand for reliable information, and to also put all this different information that I think everyone around the world is being bombarded with on a daily basis, to put that into a context. What does that mean to me? What does that mean for my family, for my daily life? What we've also seen is that a lot of media, small media, but also big media businesses find it really difficult to know where to start, because it is a very complex issue. And I'm sure Eva can say a lot about that from her experience as a consultant. So where do we even start? It's so complex. And that's why a lot of media owners, media managers don't even get started on this. So we've developed this, we call it a VAM, a viability assessment map, to help take media bit by bit through this process and explain to them what it all, and look at all the different, that's why it's 360, to have like a round view of all the different aspects that relate, and then to prioritize, because prioritizing is the only thing you can do. You won't be able to work on everything at the same time. So just before we move on, I want to you on COVID, what we have seen from speaking to a lot of media from around the world, what I can look what is out, integrate people dedicated to outlet, but don't necessarily think about the business side. But in business, as the journalist is an expert in telling a story. There's research from Latin America, for example, where those media outlets that had employed someone only dedicated to the business side, they had increased their income by 3,000%. So it's really worth it, to look at the business side as much as you look at the content side. Collaborations are really important. Again, in COVID times, this is really important. Seek collaborations with journalistic actors, so with other media outlets, but also with non-journalistic actors, graphic designers, security people. I mean, depending on what you need, go out of your comfort zone and try and cooperate and come up with new products. As I said before, invest in capacity building, because this, as you all know, this is a very fast-moving market, and I think we always need to be on top. Create room for innovation, interact with your audience, really find out what your audience wants, and you can do that in various ways. There are examples where people just go to the community that they serve or to their audience and just speak to them, have a coffee with them, or have an online discussion, or find ways to really find out what is it that your audience wants. Who are they? What are their dreams? What are their aspirations? What are their worries? What information are they missing that you can provide to them? And find a very attractive way to present it to them that they can relate to. Make tech an integral part of your work, of course, and then the last one, build a community, really relates to the interaction with the audience I spoke about before, because building this community means you will have a loyal audience that is willing to pay for your content. And we hear a lot, oh, people in our country are not used to paying for content. And what we then say, well, maybe it's a matter of pricing. And even there are examples from very poor areas, from slums, where people will give just, it's a token, but still it's some money as a sign that they value what you do. Building a community might also help you if you get political pressure, if you're under political pressure, if you're attacked. We've seen that as well. So building this community around you to support you, to engage with them, is probably one of the most important aspects that we've seen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nadine. It's very powerful. I will come back to you, but what I wanted really to know is to dig deep into I know you've highlighted how relevant the community is around this concept of media viability, but there are those other 5 dimensions that I want you to think about that are highlighted in that document, in terms of how they, like, for example, beyond just building a support community that believes in your media house or your platform, how does that really relate to bringing in the money? So I will come back to you on that. For now, I wanted to bring in Jared Businge, who is a very good friend of MCI as well. Jared, I hope you're here with us. I see you're here now. Great. So Jared, what are some of the main challenges? I know you've done Uganda. What are some of the main challenges that you have identified through your interactions and through your research that is home here in Uganda, that is facing our media industry? If you could share that with us. Gerard? Yes, but we would love to see you as well. Unless your video is not good.
Let me see.
Yeah. There you go. We have you.
Okay, I had troubles connecting until I decided to come in on phone.
Okay, thank you so much.
So very glad to be part of this. You're asking about the challenges. First of all, from our many years of experience and interacting with several media operators, one of the biggest challenges is availability of skills that can help media organizations survive, especially as they attempt to navigate to newer waters of new media platforms and content. Many media houses have had a lot of challenges finding the right skill, the right people, the right talent with the right mindset, and who are willing to test and try out things and but take them up to where they are able to generate income. So we have seen a lot of media attempting things, perhaps less than a year, due to inability to push things on and on with a lot of skills and also teams, because one of the challenges we find is you need a bigger team. You need developers, need business-minded people. Probably some of them have needed the data-rich people who can do data mining and cleaning and publishing, visualization, and this kind of readily available in. So we've seen people talk about investment. Many times we talk about revenue models, and the thinking is like there is magic. You just do this, go on Facebook, put up a website, and you have money coming in. Many operators have not been willing to put in that necessary investment, both in terms of training, skills, but also acquiring the kind of gadgets and working environment like really good internet for their people, both at home, wherever they are, because part of the challenge is that people have to work wherever they are in this new paradigm. And many media houses have not been willing to put in the right investment to put this work. But also we've seen that every time we talk about models, because in our topic here we are talking about models, it's like something has already been done, it exists. Yet, as I'm sure the previous speaker must have spoken about this, that it's a lot of learning on the job, on the go. So many people are looking for models, something that has worked. Yet we find that in most of the current practices, you are testing out and thinking how they can. It's not easy to know what will work for you and what won't work for you. But also, by the time something works, probably by the time it works for someone, and you want to start it to work ongoing. Those are what I can clearly say straight away from the interactions we had with the media operators.
Thank you, Jared. Just one thing that I wanted to quickly follow up on. You talked generally about the challenge of technical skills or the lack of technical skills. I wanted you to highlight a bit some of those skills that you think or you found to be missing in the space. So that people like us, if we're doing trainings, and even the universities, they think about some of those skill sets right now that are needed to take the industry forward.
Media skills, journalists with ability to produce both a good text copy, written copy, with good audio production and sharing. Journalists who are able to do video and produce good quality video, including on the go, including live video. Journalists who are able to do good graphics. As you know, new media is big on data, and the data is that defining sector where we can present information in different ways. So journalists with these kinds of skills at an operational level beyond the introduction are quite scarce. But also the other skill that is greatly missing is business thinking. Because the traditional journalist is detached from the media setup. The business arm of the organization hardly concerns the usual journalist. And yet we are here in uncertain waters, and you need to experiment. You need to think about how you get in people, how you build communities, how you engage people. And we found actually media houses who say, beyond submitting a story, many journalists do not want to be engaged. So this, I don't want to call it entrepreneurship because they are working already for a media organization, but the ability to think business is greatly lacking. To think how the organizations, how their revenue also affects their own well-being is greatly missing. Then, of course, the other is the whole thing about, yes?
I want to ask you something to that.
Yes.
Do we turn journalists into businessmen and women? Because there is that gap. Traditionally, we've had you're a journalist, you're an editor, you're a reporter, and that's it. So how are we bringing in this business perspective? Different people to occupy those places, or it's important for journalists as well to think about business? Because there's also been a debate around the danger of journalists being mixed in the business, that it's not something that can go well.
Struggling with the same question at our media company. I am failing to get the right word, but it's one of those dilemmas. Whether you should have practitioners who are consistently focused on just outputting journalism, not thinking about the media, because that's part of the other. For us at our company, we had to go to understanding the difference between media and journalism. Media platforms, while journalism is a practice. So can journalism survive when the media is struggling? Now, we know that question. That's without an effective, thriving media, it's difficult to have very good journalism. course, good journalism requires investment, requires consistent operation, and we have to find ways. That's why we need a new mindset. So it's not thinking business per se. The traditional way of thinking about media and business is that you are like going in bed with advertisers, you are focusing on them. But what we are talking more about, the kind of business awareness, is to move journalism more from a one-way channel to a customer-centric operation, where people think of readers, viewers as customers, that once you communicate, you need to hear from them, and you need to provide even the news that they want, even ask them the kind of news you want published, the kind of content they would want, so that they can support you. You can have them one as an audience, but also they can buy real products and subscribe to real goods from you, even as the ones that you produce as a journalist. It's extremely important to view things that way if you're going to be useful to today's media operations.
Thank you, Jared. I think what you're basically highlighting is that we have to mean business and see what opportunities media houses can create, and with diverse skills internally to make sure that the business is thriving as well as the journalism side is thriving. Songa, I'm going to bring you in because I know you have, I would say, a startup or a new media company, and you have also worked in the landscape in mainstream media here in Uganda. I would love to tap into your experience on how COVID-19 has affected your company as an individual during this whole pandemic, and what you're doing that other young startups in the media landscape can learn from you to make sure that you're staying put into the industry.
I have my earphones.
The sound is still low, but at least we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you may have to get closer to the laptop or phone.
I think I'll just hold the phone closer to me. Hi everyone. Apologies on the weird framing. I see Njoki and Nadine are all perfectly framed, so congratulations. One of the challenges in the wake of COVID-19, really, in my experience with Storytel and as the team that I lead, the biggest setback has really been the money coming in. And I'm really, really grateful that this conversation has since brought us to a place where we recognize that we need to start thinking about journalism in the relation of business. Just like the previous speaker said, that business in this case is not necessarily all about advertisers, but it goes beyond that. It goes into understanding our audiences, understanding that our consumers are no different from the consumers that Mercedes makes cars for or Apple makes phones for. But we need to understand their needs, we need to understand where they're coming from, we need to understand the gaps that they feel need to be filled. That said, the main point that keeps coming up is about collaboration in this age, and I think Nadine really brought up clearly the point that I wanted to make in that regard, that collaboration in this case needs to also go beyond the media scope and go further to non-media practitioners, whether NGOs or graphic designers. And then I think for me, the experience with collaboration in this way has been what it is going in the wake of COVID-19, that we are collaborating with NGOs that want content produced. And in a way, that collaboration means we still get to put content out and it is still affordable in one way or another. But also it is unlocking the potential that we have within the industry, because I always see the media or journalism existing not just as an island, but also as just an entity within the bigger ecosystem that has creatives of all sorts, be it dancers or singers. And that understanding that collaboration needs to go beyond the other media house, which in Uganda we've also not been doing as much as maybe we should, but I'm glad COVID-19 is opening up new doors. But yes, in the wake of COVID-19, for me, it's the collaboration, and someone mentioned prioritization. That's also very, very important, because on top of innovation, we need to find actual needs and fill those with a level of prioritization. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. COVID-19 has brought to the front, the need to collaborate further, but also to widen who are we collaborating with, but then also more importantly, seeing journalism as it needs to be a business angle to it. How we do that definitely is for the different stakeholders to navigate, but it's more than money really that is required to keep this ship going. Thank you.
Songa, I think what was stood out for me is this idea of understanding the needs of our audiences and of our customers and highlighting collaboration. And to speak towards collaboration, I want to invite in now Njoki. I know you work in innovation for media viability at the Innovation Center in Kenya. How is the Kenya industry dealing with this whole question of media viability, sustainability, revenue models? And if you could place for me, what's the position of innovation in this whole discussion?
Media industry is experiencing a free fall in the past 10 years. It's evidenced through declining revenues, declining newspaper readership especially, and with Kenya being very advanced in terms of internet penetration, so a lot of audiences in Kenya are resorting to listening and getting their news from online platforms. So that definitely has some serious implications for legacy news media organizations. And therefore, what has happened right now, over and above seeing declining revenues, the situation here in this country is not very good. We have, since the start of COVID-19, we have about 400 Kenyan journalists who have lost their jobs, being laid off from legacy news media organizations. Kenyan journalists are working, they are overworked and underpaid. They are having to survive on half of their salaries. And two of the largest news media organizations, that is Nation Media Group, which has tentacles in East Africa, reported a loss. So did Red Group Limited also report a loss, and we also saw yesterday Standard Group laid off several journalists. And this is why innovation, the importance of innovation cannot be underscored enough in Kenyan context. So what we are seeing right now, over and above the ruthless cost cutting by news media organizations, we are seeing a change of mindsets. We are seeing a shift in paradigms where news media organizations are beginning to embrace digital over and above just paying lip service digital move. We think actually take some very bold steps to launch digital products that are specifically targeting the young people, and that is a very elusive audience, that is the under 35s, which make up about 79% of Kenyan population. So we are seeing a lot of digital products. Like I've said, we are seeing this legacy news media organization launching a podcast. There's one that I saw the other day, launched something that looks like a paywall. And that's why innovation now becomes very critical in this move to media in the post-COVID era. And I say post-COVID era advisedly because I don't think there's ever going to be a post-COVID era. And so what we are doing at the Innovation Center, over and above supporting media innovators through training, coaching, mentorship, and startup funding, that is grant funding, we are working very closely with news media organizations to just rethink the future of journalism, and even, who knows, attempt to reinvent journalism. So we are doing a bit of research. There's some research for innovation for media viability that my colleagues and I and our project partners, Rochevelle Academy, have recently launched, and we are currently doing data collection and also planning to do research on audience analysis to understand how young people in East Africa are consuming news. So this is a very important discussion. It's an opportune moment to begin to rethink journalism. I think personally there has been an over-commercialization of journalism, not just in Kenya, but across the world, where we are seeing some very cheap form of journalism being commercialized because it's easy and it's cheap to produce. But eventually what we are seeing is that news media organizations are actually moving away from that kind of clickbait journalism, and we're seeing a lot more investigative journalism, a lot more citizen audience-centered journalism, and I think it's a good move, and that is what innovation encapsulates really, all the way from storytelling to paradigm shifts to new products, digital products, and of course making a lot of mistakes along the way, because innovation is 90% making mistakes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Njoki, for giving us that summary. I totally agree with you on, especially for young startups, being able to understand that innovation will come with a lot of mistakes here and there. So there are very many levels of innovations. You're looking at process, you're looking at product, and even just the idea of even distribution of content in itself has some level of innovation. You mentioned something around over-commercialization of media or journalism. And one thing stood out for me, because we've been talking about journalism as a public good, that it should be considered public good. And the question that usually comes next is, who should then pay for journalism? So I don't know if from maybe your experience, both journalism work as well as your academic work, if that's a question that you've had to deal with.
Last sentence.
You will freeze. Now, can you hear me okay? Yes, I was basically referring to your experience in the industry, this idea of public journalism, journalism as a public good, and who should then pay for that, and how, even because now someone will say it has become expensive to even access what other people may term as a public good. Is this something that is this a question you've had to deal with in your experience or even in your academic background as a PhD?
Yeah, great. So two things to this. So this over-commercialization of journalism has led to what we call the death of local and hyperlocal news. Because local and hyperlocal news is very, it's not as marketable, but it's very important. So what we are seeing is an increasing news deserts, particularly in Kenya. So there's some areas that literally do not just get covered in mainstream media. There's stories that need to be told. That's a very dangerous thing. And this is why we must need to think about a public media, a very serious system for a public media. Now, what is a public media? A public media is a system of quality journalism that's available for free to the people that really need it. Of people whose stories are covered in the papers, people whose issues are aired, tend to be more politically aware, tend to have higher levels of political participation. And that is exactly what we need. Because if we have news deserts, if we have pockets of these societies that are not covered by the news media, issues are not aired, then their political participation becomes next to none. So they get to elect some very mediocre leaders because their issues are not told there. They don't know, they don't have a public media system that is going to hold leaders to account. And we don't want that. So the first thing is that we need to now have some policy changes. It's so interesting that we are having a global crisis, a national crisis of and yet there's no policy response. So what are we doing, especially as East African media, at a policy level to ensure that public broadcasters, public media is well funded, the journalists are paid well, and the money that and money is channeled back to the newsroom, either for storytelling or purchase of storytelling tools that are going to enable these journalists to do their work. So that's one. But then there's the other side of the story that we must not know, is that journalism is a very expensive enterprise. It takes a lot of money to produce a good story. Investigative journalism is not cheap. So what we need to do is to bring ourselves to the realization that journalism costs a lot of money, and we need to find ways in which we can fund journalism across East Africa. And that is why we are seeing a lot of commercial news media organizations, the Nation Media Groups of this world, Standard Group Limited, Monitor, Mwananchi, and all that. That's why we are seeing they're really thinking about reader revenue. And of course, this has been tried and tested in some mature markets like the New York Times and the Financial Times and the Economist. But before we get there, it's going to be a long time. So there are two sides, really. The first side that we need, there are people in this country, there are people in this region who basically cannot afford to pay for news. When it comes to buying a packet of milk or dinner for their children and buying a newspaper, you definitely know where their priorities lie. And those people also need to be taken care of, because this is a society that needs that needs a free and public media system. And it's also important when you think about the media and the role it plays in democracy, we need to understand that for us to continue, for us to have a mature democracy, we need to have a free press that is going to bring, the leaders to account. But also on the other side, we must also support the efforts by commercial news media organizations that want to explore reader revenue. Reader revenue is not a new concept. It has been happening through circulation revenues and all that, but now we are moving to a whole new level of reader revenue. And of course, that might free them up from the influences of advertisers and governments and special interest groups. So those are the two sides of my story. So when you ask me who should pay for the media, I think number one, government ought to pay for the media through public system, and we as concerned citizens who can afford to pay $10 or $5 for a subscription, this is your time to show your support for the media if you really care about democracy and the future of our children. Thank you.
Wow. Jogi, thank you so much. You even added a call to action. I will also add a call to action. Please, if you're out there and you are passing by any newspaper stall or kiosk, buy a newspaper, because when you buy a newspaper, you support journalism, because it's through your 2,500 in Uganda shillings that you support journalism, only that. So subscribe to platforms like Storytel and other startups, or even YouTube channels of media houses, because that's how we need the media to be supported. I want to bring in now, but before that, before I get to Eva, if you're joining us on Facebook, you can continue to, if you post and use the hashtag MediaExpoUG. If you are on YouTube as well, share with us your questions. My team will be able to get the questions and we can ask our panelists today. So Eva, to you, my dear, what are those opportunities or even untapped areas for media houses and journalists to tap into in order to achieve media viability? Eva, you might have to unmute your sound. Okay, there you go.
So am I able to share my screen?
Yes, you can share your screen.
I have some notes here. So I think, come now, and the thing is going slow. And I have
understand.
I have a
If
very
there is
strange
anything we have
background.
learned so far is that technology will be slow.
I have
and
a very strange background
that's
today.
innovation.
So can you all see the screen?
Yes, we
Okay.
can see the screen.
So obviously we're talking about keeping journalism alive in times of crisis, but I think it's important to look what will you look like beyond crisis and to plan for that. So we are already seeing a paradigm shift in journalism. One of the things that stood out for me during this time is that governments the world over has called collectively on media and recognized the media as essential services. I think that's a huge shift. And that is something that we need to recognize and leverage on. So the other thing that some of the other panelists has already mentioned, you will see that when we talk media viability, no matter who you bring to the table, you're going to find that there's a theme that happens. And so a lot of what I'm saying, some of it has already been said in a different way. I think the important thing is to recognize that during this time of crisis, this is probably the first time in history, in my lifetime, where I have seen such a hunger for news, and especially local news. So we've seen an unprecedented reliance for truth-seeking, for accuracy and reliable news. And at the same time, we've seen the proliferation of fake news. I mean, fake news is everywhere. And yet people are seeking out the truth because of the crisis. And that has elevated the need for media, the need for fact-checking. I think it's important for people to use the opportunity to link the crisis to their content, to their revenue and their audiences. I give you an example. One of the stations in Ethiopia that I've worked with, they didn't have to do layoffs. As soon as the crisis started within the second month, they re-strategized. And instead of losing revenue, they actually increased their revenue by using COVID and doing compassionate marketing and collaborating and partnering with NGOs, with international donors, and they have been able to thrive. That is just one example. There's quite a few that I've come across during this time. I think what Nadine also and everybody else has said, this to me, you will always say, this is my slogan. When it comes to media viability, you gotta put your audience first, because without your audience, you don't exist. And a lot of times the media houses have become so commercialized that they serve the need of the business industry rather than the need of the audience. So I think that's a really important point. Analyzing your market and your new trends, making sure you are aware and on top of the changes of your audience behavior, invest in capacity building and especially digital skills, and really, really critical leveraging analytics, because analytics will tell you who your audience is, what they share, when they're online, what things inspire them, motivate them. I mean, you get direct feedback at any time from your online audiences, and you can link that to advertisers. I think the important part of this is during this time, I have seen too many media houses trying marketing departments doing the same thing that they did before the crisis. You cannot, it doesn't work. You have to transform your skills in marketing. You have to shift, you have to learn your skill because marketing has changed, because the way consumers are now behaving are very different. So you cannot continue to the same way. And one of those things is the important thing of understanding and understanding data and how to use the importance of investing in marketing and accelerating consumer pay models. This is the big thing. We don't just have to look at Washington Post. We can look at our own countries. In South Africa, we have which is a national online newspaper and the print transition to online, and they pay businesses. There's several different, in Nigeria, we have the Daily Nation that has moved to subscription services. But even the New York Times and the Washington Post COVID content was free, and they were able to hook new subscribers by making content free, and then afterwards pitching to people and get people online. So one of the things is to put the audience also not just at the center of your content, but at the center of your revenue now. So we're still talking about, when we look at audience needs, we got to look at, there's nothing more important than quality journalism that is relevant and I think more importantly, timely, because you're dealing with social media and online media where the competition is in vacation. So you got to be able to be ahead of the game in terms of when you post and how you post, when you're reaching your audiences. I think the awareness of changes in consumer behavior is really things you have to study as a media house, as marketing people, but also not just the marketing people, the news people, the people in the newsroom, the people on air need to understand how consumer behavior has changed. Making your audiences your stakeholders. I think the panelists before me just briefly spoke about, I think it was Njoki that spoke about, you know, reader-driven revenue. This has become a big thing now for media companies that has closed down. I've seen a lot of print media that has closed down in Africa, the world over, but I've also seen, you know, the growth of online print media. Newspapers that has gone online that has made their audience, their readers, their stakeholder, by putting them at center, by allowing them to drive the content, by allowing them to contribute and making your audiences aware that they need to contribute financially to your organization. And it doesn't have to be a lot of money, but if you have 1 million people contributing $1, you have $1 million. And a lot of times people are going after the big money instead of looking, what are the smaller steps you can take to get to the big money? Collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. I think collaboration and innovation are key. They are tied together. Collaboration in terms of content. You no longer just have to produce content. Your audiences are producing content. How are you using that content? Are you publishing their content? Are you inviting their content? So content development, content sharing, and content publishing is really critical. It's how things have changed.
Eva, sorry to cut you short, but there's just one thing that I didn't want you to miss. I've been in a conference where someone mentioned that the subscription model wouldn't really succeed here in some African countries or in African countries. And I don't know if that's a whole lot of generalization, but I wanted to tap into your experience. Are there subscription models on the continent in South Africa that you've seen really generate a good amount of money that can help a media house run?
I think the perfect model is News24. So people want to look at the app, you can download the app. News24 is a national, they went from print to online, and they are completely self-sustainable based on subscriptions. And the Mail and Guardian in South Africa has moved to subscription-based. So those are two models. And then if you look at, I think, Zimbabwe, the Daily Nation has moved to subscriptions. We can look at Indian papers are also moving to subscription-based. I think in Uganda, for me, I think subscription-based would not work in Africa if you do it if you do it in a traditional way. You have to, what African media needs to understand is that when you're online, you are interacting with an international audience. So you have to build an international audience. I think where I see the biggest challenge is that the African media tries to bring their traditional media online. And I think it's the other way. You got to build an audience online which is borderless. There is no borders. And it means your money comes from different currency the world over. So I think you got to take the African content that people are hungry for and promote that content that is critical, because there's a big desire and a big need for content that comes from Africa, and promote that content not necessarily to your African audience. I think that's the difference of how you promote paid subscriptions. And then you have to look at another key area for paid subscriptions for Africa is a lot of the media houses are doing their social media pages, their online platforms in local languages. You gotta translate into English. And minimize the local language so that you can reach those audiences internationally. So those are the 2 points I want to bring across in terms of paid services.
If you can summarize the other slides and finish.
Yeah, I'm basically finished. I think the important thing is you've heard me say this: data is a new currency. Do anything without data. Revenue is driven by data today, so people really need to get up to speed with data and analytics, remote work, mobile reporting. Instead of having your news people in your newsroom, they're doing remote work now. So you've seen a subscription service here, and non-media money. You cannot continue, you cannot survive, you cannot create media viability through just having money coming from media. You gotta have non-media products, and learning to monetize your content. I think for me, that's it, the new revenue models. I think the important thing is collaboration and innovation, mixed media. We see broadcast doing online, print doing broadcast, TV doing YouTube. So really you gotta mix it up and look at different models. So I think that's it from me. That's quite a lot, but I hope it is helpful. And now your sound is off.
I'm muted. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So that's why I call you a moving MV encyclopedia, because you have it all, really. Thank you so much for sharing that experience. I'm gonna ask our participants, if you have questions, please place them in the chat, and our panelists will be able to see them direct on their side, and they can respond as well, and they can also ask. But the other thing that I maybe wanted to pick on, Nadine, which I had earlier highlighted, is I really want people to understand deeply the more than money model of looking at those 5 dimensions of the economy, community, technology, politics, and content. Just sharing with us from your experience and research what you see on the ground, because I'm looking at building a community as one of a big asset for any media platform right now. So please. Yeah.
That you asked Gerald about, should all journalists now become business people? And I think Eva mentioned it, or Jockey. I think it's very important that the whole team understands what the situation is. So to understand the link between, the audience needs and the content, the journalism, the how to distribute, how to present your content, what do people here, what do they use? As someone said, you're competing with social media. There's a lot of people talking and screaming at the moment. How do you stand out? And why are you the media outlet? What makes you unique in reaching a certain audience and, fulfilling an information gap? And yes, there are a lot of news deserts out there everywhere in the world. And that is a problem. So the analysis, really understanding what's the economic situation that we work in. Do we have businesses that could pay for advertising? What kind of advertising is that? How can we build a newsroom that is not too dependent on this advertising, so this doesn't influence our editorial policy? Are there people, what can people actually afford? Understanding, I think it's been said, but I think you can't say it enough, understanding your audience. And there are different ways of doing that. You can go from creating these personas, doing like an empathy map, imagine your typical reader, your typical listener, what are their dreams, what are their aspirations, what do they worry about every day, to paying a lot of money for professional audience research and data. So in between those two, there's a whole lot of different steps that you can use to analyze how your audience is using, when they are, what kind of content they want to read, what they, long form, short form, radio. I mean, all of this information that is important for you to decide on a strategy, and understanding your audience. Again, you can use that to pitch to advertiser. You can use that to pitch to donors if this is, the model that you choose. So I think it's very, very. I think this for me still is key, because as Eva said, without your audience, you're nothing. If no one reads you, then you're not a media outlet. But yes, I mean, obviously, it depends on what kind of society or government, what kind of country do you live in? Do you live in an authoritarian country? Of course, your strategy has to be completely different. Even two media within the same town will come a completely different strategy. So someone says there is no magic wand. Unfortunately, there isn't. There is no magic recipe, but there's so many great examples from Africa as well, which are context, look, I mean, this is one of the things I always say, don't always look at the New York Times and the Financial Times and the Economist. Of course, I mean, they're great, but hey, they work in a completely different context. Look around you. There are amazing startups or even legacy media that have been very innovative, that have taken on experience, that have made those mistakes and come out, stronger on the other side. So have a look at bigger and smaller media that work in a similar context, economic, legal, political context, and get inspiration from them. Call them up, ask them, and make that connection, speak to each other, because that's all we can do. We can get inspirations from others. No one will be able to copy anything straight away. So that's one of the aspects. Someone asked to talk about audience, the lack of audience centered. I think I'd rather concentrate on those media that have been centering their content around the audience and have been daring. And there are two examples that come to my mind. One is a community radio in Burkina Faso, Radio Vénégré, who've been put a lot of efforts into understanding their audience. What do they want? What do they need now in times of COVID? What is it that's missing? What do we need to explain? Which has led to them making money from market stands, that advertise on the radio. They're making money. They've been even, there was, in terms of safety, was an incident when a storm was coming and one of the listeners was running to the station saying, please close the door, the storm is coming. There were incidents where a journalist was being, I think, beaten up by someone on the street, and there were people saying, no, she's one of our important journalists, we need her, don't do that, don't beat her up. So all of these aspects are based on this trust that the audience has in your media product. And if I have trust, and if this is relevant to me, then I will pay for it as well. I mean, all of these things about democracy, they're all great. And it's, this is something I say, that when I look at my personal habits, I subscribe to the media and pay for the ones that make a difference in my personal life, that explain things to me that I don't hear anywhere else. So I think all of this is very, very connected.
That's very powerful. I think one of the things that I listened to someone who was saying that a community radio must respond to the tribulations of their community, and I think that's how media is getting personal. And there's a lot of debates around. Should we keep distancing ourselves away from the people that we report or write about? And I think that's a discussion for another day. We have, I think, a couple of other questions and comments. But Songa, I think you had your hand up at a certain point. Is there something that you wanted to share? Please. Yes, we can hear you.
maybe to give the other panelists an opportunity to understand the landscape in Uganda. When it comes to collaboration, really, which is the one thing that we keep coming back to, and it goes out to even the younger journalists, the people under the MCI program, for example. In the Ugandan context, in my understanding, there's a need to understand collaboration, even from that basic level of, can two media houses work on something at the same time? Because for us, even to this day, that is almost alien, queer in a sense, really, that NBS, which is a former employer, working with NTV Uganda to produce a story. My goodness, what? No. So for us in Uganda, it really needs to start there, at that most basic of levels, and maybe even the other level being that, because content is really, really central in pushing things forward. Nadine has just talked about the subscription services she goes for. When the content is good, there will be people that gravitate towards you. But now collaboration requires us to, how do we work together to achieve this good content? So to the young journalists like myself out there on this particular forum, let's embrace collaboration. To media owners, to media executives as well. Let's embrace collaboration, even at the most basic levels. That's the point I wanted to make. I guess one of the many, but I'll stop there. Thank you.
Bas, could I respond?
Media platforms deal with that as they chase their audience online. I think the whole challenge that most of the social media users enjoy more of fun than newsworthy content. Should we continue giving them just fun content, nothing like serious, or should we make news fun?
Abbas, is that my question? I think I lost you for a bit there.
I think that was Eva's question in the group, in the chat box.
No, that's not my question, but I would like to make a comment to Songa's response,
Please.
if that's okay. Very quickly, collaboration is key, and like you say, it doesn't come natural. It's something that has to be built and developed. And when we talk about media viability, I always say you cannot create media viability in isolation. You have to work with partners. You have to work with stakeholders. You have to work with other media. And a perfect example, we had a webinar with MFA, Media Focus on Africa, just a couple of weeks ago. And the station manager on Speak FM in Gulu spoke, Jane, Jane, and she was telling Jane about that station had not survived, but about her application and collaborating the media in content. And so we collaborate with the cross-border network. Yes, your competitor, they have set up a consortium in Kenya with media houses. People are proposals. Media houses, instead of writing one proposal for one media house, you write them for 20 media houses with a reach of 20 million, 30 million people. Any investor, any funder, any stakeholder is going to want to support that. Celebration can really happen on levels. To initiate, you have to be willing to be vulnerable and talk to each other. Thank you.
With collaboration, you have clear strategy. So why do it? You need to have a strategic goal while you're doing that with whether you're reaching that goal or not. If it only causes you more work and eat up your resources, it's probably not a good way.
Just to give a quick example in relation to the work that Story told. When it comes to collaboration, like strategy is important. At the moment, we have and the whole public things might give you headaches. Again, just the point, collaboration goes beyond just the media partners. Media people are also as relevant. Thank you.
So if
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
yes, it's definitely.
My connection here has been affected, so somehow I couldn't read the other questions that were posted in the group. But I think there are a couple of questions for Eva. I don't know if you can refer to the chat box, Eva, quickly and respond to them. There's a question, for example, from Guma Hassan, who says, how should a community radio run with another media in collaboration to reach a given target? I think you highlighted that. Are there other questions you see that you'd love to comment on? Gerard, Nadine, everyone, if you want to comment, please. Okay, thank you so much, Gerard. I see your chat with Anka. Is there something that you wanted to share on the conversation, because we seem to be coming to the end of our session? Okay.
Some of the questions that were asked. In terms of audiences, we hear this a lot of time, that people are more interested in entertainment and how to do as a media house focused on journalism, be able to thrive. As you can see on the screen, thank you, Anika, again for sharing. It's like I told you, we had first think about this thing called media and journalism and understand them and attempt to think about them differently. How do you make journalism survive and thrive? How do you make media survive and thrive? So one of the things we've done is develop products. For example, we started with WinFormers, and when we looked at the analytics of what we are for one content, we started Yaka. Again, so when we analyze when they come on Yaka, what they're discussing, even on the website, we found that a lot of people actually wanted the live sports. And we started Secdrive. So if you really look at your analytics, we really need to look at the data of how people consume our content. You should be visiting Google Trends every day to see what people are conversing online, searching, and you could to think of products that you can develop separate. So you can develop an entertainment product that is from usual offering, an education product, a sports product, and answer to those very needs. They don't have to come all in your journalism-based media operation. That said, of course, also in terms of cooperation, first we had to also look at house generating of content, a lot of learning, how do you utilize this and become training and learning organization? And that's part of what we do. We do training, additional training, usually from our experience of sharing, as well as research. With, for example, on the screen is Yaka. So part of what we, if I go back to that, is you can looking, but they subscribe for news. If they can't subscribe for news, is there entertainment they can subscribe for? Is there learning they can subscribe? So we offer learning content and interactive classes for primary, secondary, and we have people subscribing for that over annual packages. So look for a product that you offer, and then people can subscribe. It doesn't have always to be news or direct journalism, because if you look even in traditional media, if you're a radio station, a normal newspaper, not all the content is journalism.
Okay. Are you still going on?
That's why I think that we always need a two-pronged platform itself. If we look at the different solutions for each, then we can allow me just a few seconds to complete this. We work with a lot of organizations like UNICEF, like Oxfam, and they want to collaborate with media houses. But they complain that media houses think about them in they go to ask them for ads.
Jared, your audio.
What they are working on is not, they're not selling a product, just money to do content. Okay. So they do. Yes, many organizations are looking for media houses that can work with them to enhance community engagement, to do beyond the record things, air them. Again, when they air, they take programs to the communities who are not able to listen. There are a lot of examples where collaboration can really work and can provide quite some good funding to run a lot of programming and content for media houses.
Okay. Jared, one thing that I really want us to maybe close with is this issue of safety and security for journalists, or even the abuse of press freedom and press rights. We will be discussing that topic, I think, one of the next days, either Thursday or Friday. But how, for all of you, as you will be making your final remarks, how does that play into keeping journalism alive? Because one of the things that we have been talking about here at MCI is to keep journalism alive, you must keep journalists alive as well. And we are witnessing journalists being jailed, killed, arrested globally. So I want to tap into all of you as you give your final remarks. What, abuse of press freedom globally on Africa, in Uganda, in other countries, what does that mean for sustaining journalism and sustaining the media industry? So I could start with Jared.
Okay, I think this is an important issue. Whoever communicates both in traditional legacy media and new media needs to be interested in freedom of speech and freedom of the press. So I think it's important to continue the advocacy for the respect of all people who are communicating, and to advise those in authority to desist from over-controlling and abuse. But it's also important for journalists to seek for support in terms of skills on how they can keep themselves safe while working in both traditional and new media. Otherwise, we see that the environment is getting quite tricky and very threatening. We need safety first. So journalism safety and security is of extreme importance. And we hope that all trainings can really integrate and mainstream this aspect into their programming. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If we could now move to Nadine. Nadine, could you hear me? Nadine, we are coming at you now. If you can share your perspective on okay, thank you.
Because before working on media viability, my focus was safety and security for a long time, and I worked with a lot of journalists in crisis zones. So I'm really happy that you're bringing this up, because we see a really clear connection between the two. And the trend has been that individual journalists have been trained and have been empowered and enabled to protect themselves. But what we see is that it's much more of a newsroom issue, really. You know, the newsroom needs to be safe, the newsroom needs to be aware, and all the different aspects that come into media viability do also play a very important part in safety and security. And I'm talking about digital safety, I'm talking about physical safety, but I'm also talking about the security of journalists knowing that they will get paid on time and that they will get a big enough salary so they don't have to take money from other sources, you know, that might influence their reporting. So again, talking about trust and your audience trusting of what you say and what you write about, they also need to know that this is, you know, a journalistic point of view and you're not repeating or doing PR for someone else. So collaboration is key also for security. I mean, in war zones, what happened a lot of times, or not even war zones, but very dangerous countries, newspapers, media outlets have gotten together and published things at the same time as a matter of protection. Because if everyone publishes, you know, a very sensitive story at the same time, those that are being accused will not be able to attack everyone, every news. We've seen that in Iraq, we've seen that in Mexico, we've seen that in different areas, countries which have societies with a big lack of trust generally. So this was a big step for them as well, but there was a need and the necessity to do that. Quality content, big issue. I mean, a lot of the journalists that I used to see attack, that I dealt with personally, the content was, you know, calling someone names or, you know, not being fair, and others that were doing really strong investigations, again, in countries that, you know, very difficult situations. And I said, aren't you afraid to report on these things? And every time they told me, as long as we show both sides, as long as we show the truth, we should be safe. You know, we know where the borders are. We know how far we can go. It's still important to report about this. So quality content is really important as well. Technology is important for safe, you know, to safely communicate with your sources or with everyone else. And again, community. There is evidence that the community will protect you. You know, if there is a feeling that it's not okay to attack you because you're playing an important role in your community, and people realize what they're missing if you as a media outlet are not there anymore, they will defend you. Again, of course, there are countries where this is not possible anymore. Egypt, for example, it's not possible. You know, there are countries that have gone beyond, but countries that are democratic and we have threats for free journalism and freedom of expression everywhere, you know, it's important that you connect to your audience and you explain to them, you know, what the value add is to their daily life. So going back to the media house and to the newsroom, it's important to have a holistic approach. It's important to think about all these issues, you know, hire a lawyer, get legal aid, you know, if this helps you to produce content that makes you less vulnerable for legal attacks. So we will be publishing something on that very soon. So that's why I'm so passionate about this. Thank you.
We'll look out for the experience of your work in conflict areas and how it relates to media sustainability. Njoki?
Another aspect of press freedom that we need to think about is from an economic perspective, where we're seeing governments, especially African governments, denying advertising revenue to news media organizations in an attempt to cut them at the feet. So I think that is something that we need to really think about. It has happened in Kenya. I know it will happen in, perhaps it could happen in other countries, and that has really significantly affected local news media organizations, especially in Kenya. We are seeing them cutting back, and all these activities are really clawing back on a lot of press freedom milestones that we had achieved as a country. So that's very critical, because the government sort of knows that if it denies critical advertising revenue to news media organizations, then a lot of them are really going to be literally on their knees. So I think as we go forward, I think that is something that we might need to think about, and this is why a conversation around media sustainability and media viability away from advertising revenue, and particularly away from government advertising, is very critical at such a time as this. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure participating in this webinar.
I think we have Songa. Songa, if you could also share some of the key takeaways for you from this particular webinar.
Seems like Abbas is frozen.
Eva, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I can hear you. Yeah, yes.
Okay, Songa, I was inviting you to give your remarks.
I had a feeling technology is not a friend, oftentimes. Nadine and Njoki clearly put out several points that I was going to make, but I will refer to a point that Njoki made earlier. It's a point about that calls for more organization on our end as journalists, whether that is through making sure that we have the right training, the right capacity building is in place, because when we are organized on our end, most of the people that write us off as quickly when we do things that are not up to the right standards of excellence, we'll never have the room to do so if our house is clean enough. So to the Ugandan journalists and anyone aspiring to be a journalist, really, I hope that we really think about security in terms of not necessarily us versus them, but we need to build our own house and enough that those people that would write us as quickly as they can don't have as much room. Whether that is unionization, and when I say that, sometimes it's controversial, that people are like, oh, no. Journalists cannot unionize in the way that mine as unionized a couple of years ago. But organization is something that we need. You're safer if you're organized in that sense, at least I believe so. But then as a, again, parting remark, I will still refer to Njoki's comment earlier, that innovation in this sense, thinking about the future, because I've also been reflecting on who does the thinking, who leads the thinking about the future of journalism. And I really wish we discussed this, but we're out of time. But as we answer some of these questions, really, innovation, like Njoki said, will be 90%, false start. So maybe I want to put that number higher, 90%. But in doing so, in being actively out there, that's when we learn from our mistakes. And I hope, as an active contributor to Ghana's journalism, that I'm alive and well to see the fruits of this innovation collaboration come to life. Thank you.
You and I,
my friend, to tell those stories. Eva.
I mean, I come from a background of being an investigative reporter during apartheid years, where I've had bomb threats and guns put to my head in my studio, and I would still say, I have the microphone, you have the gun, what are you going to do? So, I mean, sometimes we have to be extreme. We cannot be afraid as journalists, but the point is we cannot work in isolation, because then we're vulnerable. Then they can kill us off. But if we work as groups, the way we created a different media in South Africa after apartheid was to know that if there was an attack, we had a network that we had established in the mid-90s. So if anything happened, that network responded, whether that was in advocacy, whether that was in protest, whether that was sending a letter from the editors. Anything that happened to any journalist, to any media house, became a national interest that was written about, talked about on radio, showed on TV, because we were a network. Now, you don't have a network, but you have an editors forum. There's many organizations, so use your editors forum so that the collaboration to protect the journalists becomes a collective effort where it's not about one media house against the other. It is about protecting the lives and the well-being of journalists as a country, as an institution. So I think for me, that was the biggest lesson during after apartheid is we developed a network, we stood together. You could not, and our slogan from apartheid, an injury to one is an injury to all. We lived it. And you have to, I want to encourage you to work together. It's the best way to protect yourself, is to work together and to stand together and to speak up. When something happens to one journalist, it should be a national and an international issue that every media carries to put pressure and to continue the advocacy work and to continue to have conferences where all stakeholders can be spoken about. And I think Nadine pressed on a very important point. Do not attack people personally. There's got to be content, has got to be about quality, and we have to give both sides of the story. So we find that journalists very much take sides instead of being a facilitator of a conversation. So get back to the principles of journalism. My last points are, you've got to become multimedia skilled. You cannot be a news reporter anymore. You got to be a news reporter, videographer, photographer, a news writer. So you got to become a multimedia practitioner. I think I want to encourage journalists to not be a generalist, but to stand out. What makes you? You've got to become sought out. I am the person that tells this type of story in Uganda that international media is going to reach out for. So you got to become an expert in your field, and you got to be able to not just write and produce stories for Uganda, but for international agencies, for international media. You have to sell your product. Your product that you produce got to be packaged differently for an international audience and sell it so that you don't have to become a business person. You become a journalist that can make serious money through driving your content. That's it from me.
Wow. Eva. Thank you for, what can I say? Full of inspiration, as always. I think this is going to bring us to the end of this panel. But just a few things for me, really, that I just want to thank you, our panelists, very much for sparing the time to join us from Germany, Nadine, Kenya, and Njoki, South Africa, Eva, and then Jared and Songa here in Uganda. Dr. Beale couldn't join us. We'll find out. Maybe he had some challenges, but definitely we'll make sure that his presentation is shared as a resource. We will also be sharing most of these resources that are coming from these panel sessions. You will find them on our website, but also you can easily access them on our YouTube and Facebook. For me in particular, what I take from this conversation is organization, organization, and more organization. You talked about diversity of content, and we talked about diversifying revenue streams, and of course collaboration as a community. I'm so big about community building, and I think that's one of the things that we're missing to build a community of journalists in Uganda who stand and fight for each other and across the globe. So thank you so much again, our panelists. Thanks and a big shout out to our partners who make this expo possible. So the Kodra Adenua Stiftung, DW Academy, the US Mission, and the European Union this year. We really, really appreciate, because without you, we definitely wouldn't pull off this event. And of course, I have to give a big shout out to my MCI team that, does all the big work in the background. I'm all wired here because of these guys. I really, really appreciate you. So you should know that from the bottom of my heart, I have so much love for you as the MCI team. For the guys on Facebook, for the guys on Zoom, this is the end. But tomorrow we have a session on underreported, unreported, and undocumented stories. So we were talking in this specific panel today, we're talking about how can we tell those stories that no one else is telling. And we have a very good panel tomorrow, same time, that will be happening, focusing on that. So if you're out there and you want to understand really what are those stories that we're not telling that you could maybe think about as a journalist or as a media house, tomorrow join us on the same channels, and we'll be sharing to all the people that we've invited today to attend the panel tomorrow. For the guys on Facebook, the show continues. Our hosts, pre-event hosts, Rahim and El Shaddai will continue to host, and they will be giving us basically analysis of what they take away from this panel session as young journalists who have come out of the Media Challenge Fellowship Program and what that means for them. And then later in the day we'll have skills building sessions around personal brand building for journalists with Flavia K. Tumusime, and then we'll also have a session on photojournalism for journalists with Anna Kuchma, if I got the name right, from UPPA, Uganda Press Photo Association. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us and keeping on this panel with us. Have a great day. And we will now, for the guys on Facebook, you can take a look at this video that we've been doing documentaries with media houses to see what are the challenges they've gone through, and this is one of the videos we've done. For the guys on Zoom, we shared some of these video YouTube links in the chat, so you can check them out and watch wherever you are. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye.
Media Challenge being a home of digital journalism, something that we've trained university students and practicing journalists, it would be a shame if we didn't have this a success. Seeing the different panelists from different countries getting together to talk to the different university students who are also in their homes in different places of this country is something that we didn't see ourselves achieving. I've also come to learn that digital is the way to go. Online conferences is the way to go, because I realized that many of panelists were at ease when they're in different locations to participate in this year's Expo. This has created a global village where we've been connecting to panelists from different countries, connecting from Nigeria, and from Nigeria to South Africa, and then to USA, Norway, Canada, from different locations, has created a global village. But also seeing the participants, especially university students, are participating from their comfort zones. But also the end result is embedding all those people from different countries, from different locations, participants and panelists, into one product. And that was the live stream for the 2 days that's been on Facebook and Media Challenges. YouTube is something amazing. So this is an experience that you can't miss, be it in print journalism, be it in broadcasting journalism, online journalism. This is an experience that you shouldn't miss, because it is an experience that you'll never find anywhere. And having a feel of television in a conference is also something uncommon in Uganda. So please join us for the remaining days as we connect to different countries and connecting to different panelists, but also connecting with different journalists across the world.
I think that one of the quickest impacts that it has is that it's democratized news sourcing. Previously, news was really much officialdom. What the pandemic gave us was a chance to go into our communities and tell stories from our communities because our reporters couldn't come to office and go back home in time. So we were asking them to stay at home and work from home. And that allowed us to get a lot of community news stories coming to the TV screens. I think that the other thing that it has also offered us is introspection as the media. We've been running a media model economically that doesn't work, and it's been said that the media is dying all around, all across the world, and the pandemic has offered us that time to introspect and say, is this a news model that we can work with? Maybe we need to change our models, maybe we need to do something different, and that's now what we're working on, being able to deliver content to people faster and quicker and in the ways in which that they appreciate it. But also I think that the pandemic has offered us a chance to hold government to account. Previously, the interaction between government and the newsrooms was once a month, twice a month at most. Now, because of the pandemic, we have almost a daily interaction with government agencies, and holding them to account is one of those things that the media is doing currently. We work in a news organization now. The news as a business has changed fundamentally. There's new news events and developments almost every minute. So being able to follow up on news stories and even contextualizing those stories is a hard one. And I think that what it's going to take is going to take just basic attention from media houses. Media houses have to sit down and say, these are the stories that we're paying attention to, and this is why we need to pay attention to them. And one of those stories is really the COVID-19 pandemic. So we'll have a great deal of work to do in terms of follow-up, but also a great deal of work to do in terms of patience and paying attention to the things that matter. I think that the greatest opportunity that has showed itself in this pandemic is delivering news in unique ways. And many news organizations have had to do that. Finding unique ways every day to do your job as a journalist has had its own impact on our audiences. Being able to do, for example, entire shows from my home, being able to shoot promos, have interviews, package a whole show from my home, that exposed me to a whole new way of doing the media business, but also exposed me to a whole new level of interaction with the news as an entity. And I think that the other great opportunity that this pandemic has brought with it is collaboration. More than ever now, newsrooms are collaborating. International news organizations are working with local news organizations to be able to get news stories from here and relate with the rest of the world. Because the pandemic has just made us realize that we are one world. I think that many media organizations have paid attention to their reporters' health in terms of sanitizing, having masks, what places do you go out, what stories do you tell, when do you tell them? Media has largely avoided crowded events and crowded organizations and crowded places so that they don't infect their own reporters. But again, media is really a life of sacrifice. If a story is where the problem is, then definitely some level of sacrifice is taken to tell some of these stories. And some of our own people have actually suffered the COVID-19 virus. They've been in hospitals and come out. So the basic investment in terms of public health has been done, but there's more to be done. But also, it's a catch-22 for us because a lot of sacrifice has to be done, and that sacrifice has to be done by reporters. There's no one who was prepared for the pandemic, and the Ugandan media is no exception. The pandemic really hit us hard. It came as a surprise. Of course, it had started in China and got to Uganda almost 4 months later, but we hadn't been prepared for it. We also not prepared for the level and scale of government response to it. So for example, the lockdown, we were caught flat-footed on how to be able to source news stories. When government instituted measures on curfew, we didn't know how to bring in guests at night. We didn't know how to do news stories at night. We also didn't know how to transport our staff and team. So it caught us unprepared, but we're lucky we responded to it as fast as we could. Always be prepared to take chances. I didn't know for a fact that I'd be doing a show from my home for almost 2 months. It was just when it hit, when the opportunity presented itself, I was prepared enough to do it and I was ready to take the risk doing it. Experiment with the things that you have at your disposal. We could easily have said, you know what, let's cut out the 9 p.m. news because we can't be able to pull it off. But being able to experiment with the things that we had at our disposal and bringing those experimentations to the public helped us in a way to tell the news. So be able and be ready to experiment. But the third and most importantly, just hold the vision. Hold the vision.
Guys, what's up? It's your girl Cookie, aka the last one, aka the dreaded voyage. And guys, today is Sunday and it is the third day of the Expo at the Inter-University Media Challenge. It's been 3 days of hard work, 3 days of digital skills, 3 days of panel discussions, 3 days.
Well, thank you so much if you are still with us. For those of you who have been with us wherever we started from, and of course up to now, it has been a very nice panel that we just had. And of course, what you've just seen is the work of the Media Challenge production team. These guys are so professional in their work that they do. If you have any function, any name the function, a conference, is it a webinar, is it a wedding, is it a graduation, or any other function, these people can make the best of your production that you will never maybe talk about. They can bring a radio studio on your occasion so that people can listen in from wherever they might be. They can bring and carry a whole set of the TV studio so that people can watch your occasion from the comfort of their places. But of course, it has been a very nice panel that we just lately had. A lot of panelists have discussed maybe the media viability and maybe new models that are media houses are adapting to keep journalism alive in these times of uncertainty. So we are here to dissect some of the things and maybe the nitty-gritties that have been in the whole panel. So Rahim, it has been a very nice panel that we've just recently had. What do you make of the panel, the whole panel that we've just had?
I think it was really worth the time and great, but I would maybe want to open up with a quote that I had of, who then should pay for journalism? It is either we pay for journalism or journalism pays for it. We are in a situation where we definitely need a lot of funding. Like he was saying that investigative journalism really needs money to run. This is a sector that needs a lot of money, yet we are battling financial issues. You will agree with me that even before COVID-19 hit, we had issues, people saying we are paid peanuts. Our bosses pretend to pay. They pay, but they pretend to pay. They are not paying us the money that we actually deserve. You have situations, now the COVID comes in, and you have to work from home. Who then should facilitate this? You need internet running. You need to pull up these stories ASAP as soon as you can. It just needs a lot of money. Now we are battling two issues. We didn't have the money, and now it is worse. We have salaries being cut from journalists who everyone is running to understand, to hear, to know what is happening. It's quite intensive, isn't it?
Very many things have been uttered out, and of course there has been a plethora of effects that have been progressing. But when you talk about monetary issues, that's a very wide conversation that journalists themselves would love to listen to and maybe get to understand what is the future like. Will us be able to sustain ourselves when the prices or the salaries are cut short? So a lot of different things are happening. But of course, within the things that are happening, one of our panelists, Juliet Nadine, talked about something that regardless of the situation, what we need to do as journalists to keep journalism alive is that we do not have to compromise about the situations. We need to tell high quality stories, and of course stories that do not have hate speech. You understand? Because as a journalist who is underpaid, you will take advice and say, after all, I'm not paid what? After all, I'm not given this amount of money. Let me just do a story far, and then it goes. We need to understand and keep some of the facts that will keep journalism alive is the fact of staying staying consistent and producing something that is so authentic, Rahim?
Yes, I think definitely that is the way to go, and maybe embracing digital journalism, like she further said it. Digital journalism is the way to go.
Sure.
Trust me, is the way to go. It is challenging the traditional way of journalism of, okay, well, I'm waiting for this to happen on TV.
Exactly.
I am waiting for the news anchor to come on radio to do this. Before you tell a story, the world already knows it. You get a point.
So I think I also find it as a challenge. If we do not up our game, we definitely have no journalism.
That is where the innovation comes in. We just have to keep coping with the changes that are coming in. Everyone is running to digital journalism. You don't want to stay behind. You look at traditional newspapers, New Vision, Daily Monitor and all that. You just need to have data wherever you are to access what they are saying. You just don't need to have each time, I'm running to wait for news at 9 and 8 and all that. However, like you said, we need to fund journalism. Like Impidi Abbas actually said it, that you people need to support, subscribe. When you buy a newspaper, you just don't know what you're changing.
Sure.
You're making it better for journalism tomorrow. We need these funds to keep running.
Rahim, when you talk about digitalizing journalism, I think we are in an era where young people are learning so fast, and of course, we've been having two challenges of adapting to this. Young people are now adapting to the digital world, leaving alone the traditional side of journalism. And of course, it was Njoki from Kenya who said that digitalizing and targeting young people is the way to go. Because if we pick the interest of young people, because they actually occupy the biggest population, most especially here in Uganda, if we make them fall in love with what the digital is providing to them, then we shall have numbers being up there. And maybe on the contrary, she talked about 400 journalists that have lost jobs.
That is in Kenya.
In Kenya.
You have 36,000 of them in the United States that have lost jobs. You have countless of them in our country that are forced to either work from home, to have the Sanyu scenario, like I told you earlier. You either accept it or you're leaving. This is the situation in which we are right now.
So
we
Rahim,
cannot hide the fact
maybe
that...
to cut you short, Rahim, isn't that going to bring a challenge? Having a media house that has cut short its employees, and maybe these employees do not have anywhere to go. So what they are resorting to is to start up maybe their own platforms. Isn't there going to be a contradiction? Then Rahim Nwali is working from home, he's running his own online radio, he's running his podcast, he's running his YouTube channel. Then there is another media house that is also competing for the same audience. So I just see that there is going to be a
I think that brings in the quality, quality of you as a journalist. What makes you stand out, that you're actually not part of these people that are leaving. That is to the journalist. Are you able to do thousands of these tasks that 10 people are supposed to be doing? On the other hand, digital, I think it is quite interesting to embrace it, because it gives you a number of sources. Shortly before digital journalism, you had to look for someone to give you a bite for your news, for your news report.
Sure.
But now you only need to have your phone call them, tell them, could you record for me this and this?
Rahim, does that take us back to rethink journalism?
Yes,
because it was
definitely. Yes,
about that.
Yes,
we should rethink the structure of journalism.
Yes,
and maybe bring in collaborations.
Interesting point. Collaborations. We don't need to act like we are fighting one another. We're in the same industry. I'm looking at, if you, who works for Spirit TV, wants something from me, and you just have to contact me, there is an investigation going on, do you have a bite on this? We don't work for the same firm, but we are working together to serve the people that, are waiting for us.
How is that possible in our tradition and our system here in Uganda?
It's the mindset.
So how can that be? I think our operators here in Uganda should also sit down and understand.
It should start from UCC. What is UCC doing about it? What is NTV and NBS or Delta or Salt? How connected are they? How are their reporters? So it starts with the effort of the company itself before actually engaging the journalists. The company, the brands. I will take you to give you a short story. Back in my high school, when, for example, you came from Ntare School and you're going to Mbara High School. Because of the organizations, that already could kick you out. Before they even get to know who you are.
They'll ask where are you coming from.
That already, the bias of the two organizations or stakes already is a bias. So if we create the bond between the media houses, it will be easier for the journalists themselves to do that.
Eve from South Africa talked about the untapped areas and maybe going beyond the crisis. She mentioned about investing in capacity. She talked about maybe transforming sales. She talked about partnerships and maybe investing in skills. A lot of different media houses laid off workers, and this was survival for the fittest. They would look at what skills do you offer for you to be retained. Rahim Nwali, if we are to keep journalism alive in these times of uncertainties that we do not even know when are they going to end, we're looking at the future of journalists. To a young journalist who is growing up, I think there are a lot of skills that they have to surround themselves with so that they can survive in this time and era. Rahim, you know, you've gone through a lot of trainings, you've had all these skills, and one thing that will keep you up to your game is the skills that you have. We see a lot of media houses closed down, and the same concept comes in, survival for the fittest. If you had no funds to let your people in and continue operations, you would die.
I think, Joseph, you will agree with me that this is where the media challenge comes in situations like this.
Sure.
What is their core for existence? Building a one-man woman, I'm a journalist. I'm privileged to have gone through the training, and like you said it, you just need to have all these skill sets for you to survive in a competitive industry. What can you do that your bosses will think twice before letting you go? So it comes back to you, personal initiative. Yes, you read news, you're a good news anchor, perfect. But if you have 6 of them in an industry that needs 2 at the moment, what else can you offer? However, in case you're just joining us, we are the third day, ending up the third day of the Media Challenge Expo, the virtual expo. I'm talking about how to keep journalism live in times of uncertainties, and we are talking about variability and the money issues in the business. We are here in Kasanga just to give your viewers a broad and wide and in-depth explanation of what is going on from the Zoom meeting that we earlier had. Joseph.
Maybe if we are to also, because there are certain entities that you cannot let out of journalism that make journalism. That is the community. Where does community come in now? To play its part to sustaining journalism?
If you ask me that question, the community are like our bosses because we feed the information to the community. Now, if we have subscribers from the communities, in the States, you have newspapers, The Guardian, I'm kind of forgetting the rest, where you have to only pay, you have to pay money to be able to access their content. Now, the biggest question was in Africa, should people pay for the content online or not? You get the point. So the community comes in that you are helping journalism grow in this because you need it as much as we need you.
Sure.
How then are you helping the industry to grow? If you subscribe to watch something, you're paying something towards an industry that really, really needs to keep informing you even on the comfort of your couch. And remember, Joseph, there were times when we are like soldiers, all right? Everyone is waiting home. They're scared of even getting out to buy something to eat. They're watching TV waiting for you to go out there and tell them. Why then are we not the soldiers, really?
There is something that really caught my attention. I think it was mentioned by one Eve. She talked about data is the new currency. Data is the new currency. These days and in this time, people are more interested in numbers.
Yes.
They would love to know how many people are now HIV positive. How many people have been have gotten COVID-19? How many people have died? Numbers are making numbers and rounds everywhere.
Interestingly, if someone asked me that question for someone who's just joining in journalism, my brother or sister, you need to be able to understand numbers, bisect numbers, data visualization. When you look at most of the pages online and you're looking for something, you find out that most of these numbers are reading.
Rahim Nwali, this, I want us to consider much of our generation. We are not so data friendly. We are not friends to numbers. I see it as a challenge when you give me a full, maybe PDF full of numbers, graphs, pie charts. It will confuse me totally.
Definitely. Someone who's putting it out there is trying to confuse you, but it is your understanding to look at for that particular thing to dwell on. You don't need all these numbers. You just need one particular thing to help you build the concept. Because they know Ugandans or Africans are really so weak at reading numbers. What they do then is hide content in the numbers. Now, it is your work, your extra initiative as a journalist to understand these things, because you're communicating to millions of people out there waiting for you and judging your content.
Exactly. I think some other thing that really was that held my attention was we talked about it, and maybe having people coming on board to support journalism. When COVID-19 hit, the president of Uganda came out and started soliciting for funds. Could you please help the government? And this was least expected, because how can a government come out to ask for money from people, yet it's the reverse? You understand?
I think
so. One of the panelists said that people should also engage in. If Rahim, you are a billionaire, it doesn't kill you if you support a media house with 1M every month. Take it out of your salary, or if you have a 50, you can send it to the MCI to still operate. Do you see that working here in Uganda? Because I was looking at it and I was like, okay, if I am a citizen journalist based in Bunamwaya, I have my story, I want to send it to maybe Nation Media. I need money from them. They are not the one who, I'm not the one to give them money. I've given them a story, they have to give me money. But in this situation where she talked about, it was the other way around. I can give you a story for free. I can give you some money if I am in position. So can this work here in Uganda? Because she might have talked about this in the other perspective of the international, maybe of the Western culture. But traditionally here in Uganda, I can't see that working. Maybe I can be...
maybe to quickly go into the citizen journalism, we are running out of time. But all right, citizen journalism is something we need to embrace, because you agree with me that of the recent scenarios that did happen in Kampala, most of the videos even used in the news bites were from people's phones. This is the citizen journalism. I think we just need to learn on how maybe to teach these people on how best they can do stuff, other than saying, okay, we don't need your help. We are, regardless of what quality your video is, we don't need, we just need to train, probably have some of the trainings for them to teach them, because I know they're interested.
Sure, they are, because someone would just sit down, maybe they are on a certain balcony in town, taking photos, taking pictures, taking videos.
And something comes up, pops up, before you know it, they're sharing.
And of course they will
and this is how the bulletin will start. A video was trending on so and so, you know, stuff like that. So I think citizen journalism and data, digital journalism, are some of these things that young journalists should really, really look at. Not even young journalists, but all newsrooms should put in concern. And then the mental health part of it.
Exactly.
Like George Chigozi was sharing earlier on, if you're just joining us, we watched a video by George Chigozi. If you could, you know, have a preview of the session, you'll definitely find it. And he was actually telling us about the mental health of journalists who are covering COVID-19 stories every single day. How is it impacting their life? How is it affecting them? And maybe you may learn something or two.
For those of you who are following us online, I want to let you know that we are trending #1 on Twitter. That is #MediaExpoUG. And of course, for those of you who are on Facebook and maybe our YouTube channel, you can keep those comments coming and popping through. Get engaged in this conversation, because this is a matter that you can also engage in and maybe share some opinion. But maybe, Rahim, the other thing that was talked about was the security of journalists. I quoted someone who said, to keep journalism alive, you must keep journalists alive. Because without journalists, we do not have journalism. And of course, we've had uncertain times, and most especially here in Uganda, where we've had political instabilities. And people were crying out, this should stop. Journalists should be given freedom to express themselves
Yeah,
and
that's true.
execute their work.
That's true.
What do you make of such scenarios and maybe such kind of statements? How safe can we keep ourselves in such times so that our work is not even also maybe hindered?
I think one, we would definitely want to understand or look at the situations under which you're working in, who is supporting us and who is not, how security, because there is no story worth your life.
Exactly.
That is the fact.
Give
That is a fact.
people.
You just need to know, how do I come in, where, what are my boundaries, you know? I think that way we should be able to come up with the best journalism in the country. All right. We are running out of time, but to quickly take you through what we are actually having next, we are having a skills building workshop session for students. That is our photojournalism facilitators, and Kachuma, the Uganda Press Photo Award Director, and Stewart Tiwaweswa. Sorry about that, documentary photographer, on skills building workshop session for students.
Of course, to get some of your feedback here on our Facebook page, Nyiramahoro Ruth Penny says, why can't journalists be paid monthly? Why does it have to be per show or program? I think that is the thing that causes discontent in journalists about collaborations. I think we are going to draw attention to that.
Yes.
Maybe to get Marion Apio is saying, what an awesome session, guys. Rahim and El Shaddai, thank you so much. What stood out for me is the data. Data is the new currency, and as a young journalist, I am going to invest time and embrace data. Of course, thank you so much, Marion. And for those of you who are still following us, keep those comments coming through. Mahoro is saying something here. Why can't journalists be paid monthly? Because most of the media houses have a system where they pay you per story,
yeah,
or per show that you make.
Thank you so much. I think that's quite an interesting question right there. But I would definitely tell Mahoro that it's according to the settings of the TV station or the brand under which you work for. Do you have a contract? You know, so some of these things influence your payment. Means you're a freelancer, definitely you will want to get paid every after a story, or do you have a contract that comes with? And then the brand on which you really work for is something you don't want to forget about that.
I saw that face. And I was really inquisitive to know. But anyway, that will be a topic for another day. But maybe something that really caught my attention was what community can do, maybe some things that would be talked about. A community helping. You saw, I will really draw my attention to a scenario that happened where crowds of people were shouting, that's a journalist, that's a journalist. You should not treat them like this. That's a journalist. Rahim, situations like this, our safety. A lot of panelists that have been talking, and maybe those that will be talking, will always tell you safety first. Safety first. So someone here wrote and said we should work together. We should speak together and speak up. What happens to a journalist in Malaysia? What happens to a journalist in Zambia? What happens to a journalist in Uganda here should be a matter of national importance. And as journalists across all the universe, we should make noise about it. But you know what really makes what really makes me annoyed is that when something happens, maybe in South Sudan, about a journalist, other people will keep quiet. Rahim, this is a situation where we have to alarm, to shout at the top of our voices, and maybe make comments, tell people, what is going on is it's not the right way that it should be done. Rahim Nwali, these are things that we are going to face. These are things that we have encountered. And we have been treated as people who do not even bother. When the pandemic hit, the government, actually not even the government, the World Health Organization declared journalists and the media as an essential entity.
Yes.
We are essential. So if you treat us in a way that puts us down, I don't buy that. I don't buy that really. So security operatives and everybody concerned should maybe take note of that. A journalist should be treated the way he deserves to be treated, right?
I think I would also condemn police brutality on journalists. It is something we are working under intense situations to give the society what they deserve. We really need more than this. I personally do that, not part of MCI, but I condemn police brutality on journalists. Joseph.
Rahim, maybe time is against us, but to let you know, just keep the note on, because we are still with you here. Maybe to let you know what is coming up next, we have a skills building workshop session for students, and of course photojournalism facilitators are Anne Chukma, and of course she comes in from the Uganda Press Photo Award Director, and Stuart Itiba Weswa from the documentary photographer. So it will be coming in, and of course our facilitators will be also giving us skills building workshop sessions for students as well, facilitated by Flavia Ketumsime at TV and Radio.
Right, indeed, right there we have tomorrow's program that you really don't want to miss. Interesting panelists I can see here, and Nelson Ruto, our very own, and Asha Kulsom will be hosting the show tomorrow about beyond the headlines, unreported, underreported, and ignored issues and stories. This is something you should look out for tomorrow, same time, same place.
So I've just kept quiet because I felt like this was a session worth. My name is Joseph El Shaddai. I've been here with Rahim Nwali, and maybe let's just keep engaged and keep following for our things that are coming up. Just keep it MCI, because we got you.
We are MCI, we are better and never like this before. Got you.
Media Challenge being a home of digital journalism, something that we've trained university students and practicing journalists, it would be a shame if we didn't have this a success. Seeing the different panelists from different countries getting together to talk to the different university students who are also in their homes in different places of this country is something that we didn't see ourselves achieving. I've also come to learn that digital is the way to go. Online conferences is the way to go, because I realized that many of panelists were at ease when they're in different locations to participate in this year's Expo. This has created a global village where we've been connecting to panelists from different countries, connecting from Nigeria, and from Nigeria to South Africa, and then to USA, Norway, Canada, from different locations, has created a global village, but also seeing the participants, especially university students, participating from their comfort zones, but also the end result is embedding all those people from different countries, from different locations, participants and panelists, into one product. And that was the live stream for the 2 days that's been on Facebook and Media Challenges. YouTube is something amazing. So this is an experience that you can't miss, be it in print journalism, be it in broadcasting journalism, online journalism. This is an experience that you shouldn't miss, because it is an experience that you'll never find anywhere. And having a feel of television in a conference is also something uncommon in Uganda. So please join us for the remaining days as we connect to different countries and connecting to different panelists, but also connecting with different journalists across the world.
Since 2012, we have moved around many universities and media institutions with one goal: to give a platform for the next generation of journalists. And guess what? This platform has